Well, staying with the issue of children's rights, and Tuesday marks International Day for Street Children. It aims to give voice to children who live and work on the streets. It's actually impossible to tell exactly how many children are on the streets across the world. However, the UN's Children's Fund estimates there are around 100 million street children, and 11 million of them, roughly more than 10%, are in India alone. Their biggest problem is lack of support, and that exposes children to drugs and leaves them vulnerable to sexual abuse and exploitation. All right, for more on this story, let's go to Duncan Ross. He's the CEO of StreetInvest, a company that mentors street children worldwide. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Now, this year's theme is identity. Tell me, how do organizations like yours change the negative perceptions?
Well, I think the answer is, it's not an easy question to answer. There are fairly standard attitudes towards street-connected young people around the world, and we've seen some extreme examples of it on your program just now, whether in Nigeria or in the refugee crisis. But all around the world, and even in the background behind me, there are young people who become detached from their families, from schools, from communities, and fall through the cracks that the social network should provide. And it doesn't matter how comprehensive the social network is, but there are always children who fall through that safety net. And the attitudes towards them tends to be quite consistent around the world wherever we work. StreetInvest now works, in the last year we worked in 13 countries with 32 local partners, reaching about 350,000 young people. And our aim is just to put a trustworthy adult into their lives so they can reach their potential. The issue in terms of attitudes is community attitude tends to be quite negative. People are afraid of young children on the streets, or particularly youth on the streets. So they see them as criminals, the hoodie, the gangs, the drug addicts, that kind of image. And then individuals tend to feel much more sensitive and sorry for these young people and see them really as victims, as helpless and hopeless. And we try to see young people in a different way, whether they're street connected in whatever form. We see them as full of potential. We work in a child rights-based and child-centered approach where we really try to realize the potential of those young people by putting trustworthy adults into their lives. And that's the link back to the International Day for Street Children and the work that's going on at the United Nations at the moment.
Duncan, tell me this. I mean, what does the day hope to achieve? Because it's, as far as I know, it's not an official day recognized by the UN. It's not an official UN day, is it?
It is not yet an official UN day. Our hope is that it will be. The Consortium for Street Children, of which StreetInvest is a member and I'm a trustee, is aiming that one day the United Nations will recognize it as a day in its own right. But this is a day for all children around the world, whether UN recognized or not, and all the organizations supporting street children to really have the opportunity to raise issues. And this year, as you say, it's about identity. Young people are very visible on the street, but their voices and their participation and explaining what they need and what support they need for the future is very rarely heard. So that's what the International Day is trying to change this year.
Duncan, you talked about visibility, but although they're visible, they don't have any official identification because they're living on the streets. How do they get access to education, to health care? How are they going to do that?
Well, with real difficulty. I mean, the most extraordinary thing is that these young people are really amazingly resourceful and resilient and responsive, brave and strong young people to be on the street and survive on the street. So they are responsive to opportunities. The trouble is there are a myriad of obstacles to stopping them getting into education. If they are supporting themselves, they need to earn. Schools tend to work when they're working. If they don't have the ID, they can't get into healthcare facilities. Often when they do go for medical attention, they're rejected because of their condition and the fact that they have no ID, they have no money, they have no shoes. All those issues are against them. And so there are a plethora of organizations around the world that are supporting them. But I think the biggest potential change is a general comment that is being fashioned at the United Nations, which the Consortium for Street Children and StreetInvest are both supporting, which will start to really recognize that these young people have rights. But they have the right to be on the street as well, which is always a difficult one for people to understand.
All right, StreetInvest's Duncan Ross, thank you very much for that.